Ladies and gentlemen, the late Honorable Justice Nicholas Kirriwom, PhD.
Family members of the late Justice Nicholas Robert Parker Kirriwom, Mrs. Rachel Kirriwom, children, the Frederick Kirriwom, your siblings, and grandchildren. Senior magistrates of the District Court, the Attorney General and the Secretary for the Department of Justice and Attorney General, the President of the Papua New Guinea Law Society, the constitutional office holders, the public prosecutor and the public solicitor, the Solicitor General of Papua New Guinea, Sir Arnold Ahmed, a senior statesman of Papua New Guinea and a former Chief Justice of this court, senior members of the legal fraternity. I see quite a number of you here, together with other members of the legal profession, family and friends. Today, this morning, we are gathered here to celebrate the life of our late judicial and lawyer colleague, the late Justice Nicholas Robert Parker Kirriwom. The late judge was born in his humble village, Maywok village, Bogia, in the Medang province, Papua New Guinea, on the 28th of February 1955. His parents are not named on the records that I have, and therefore I cannot report on that. The late judge started his primary education at St. Therese Primary Tea School, Ulingaur, Bogia, Medang province. Started schooling in 1962 with preparatory class, that is prep, completing standard 6 in 1968. His honor completed his forms 1 to form 4 from 1969 to 1972. They are now referred to as grades 7 to grade 10 at the Divine Word Secondary School. In 1973, his honor was accepted to do preliminary matriculation studies at the University of Papua New Guinea. He successfully completed his matriculation studies at the University of Papua New Guinea in 1973, and he started his Bachelor of Laws program in 1974. His honor completed his Bachelor in Laws in 1977. In 1978, his honor did the Legal Training Institute postgraduate studies, successfully completing that course in November of 1978. Immediately after the graduation from the Legal Training Institute and after his admission, in those days the admissions were provisional admissions, his honor joined the ranks of the Public Solicitor's Office as a legal officer. He quickly rose through the ranks, becoming a senior defending officer in 1979 and 1980. Again, he quickly rose through the ranks and he got promoted to be principal defending officer and held that post up to 1982. In 1983, the then public solicitor, Arnold Ahmed then, was appointed a judge at the National Court and the Supreme Court and made way for then Mr. Nicholas Robert Parker Kirriwom to become public solicitor of Papua New Guinea in 1983. He was the public solicitor from 1983 to 1986. After completing his term as the public solicitor in 1986, he moved over to the private sector and he was employed by the Nairobi and Company lawyers, and he practiced law with that law firm. From 1987 to 1988, the late Mr. Kirriwom then became the managing partner in the firm of Nairobi, Kirriwom, Mosoro and Ender lawyers. In 1988, Mr. Kirriwom formed his own law firm and became its principal. He continued his legal practice in his law firm until 1992. In 1993, he decided to go back into the government and became the chairman of the parole board and served as the chairman of the parole board from 1993 to 1997. When the Judicial and Legal Services Commission appointed him to be a judge of the National Court and the Supreme Courts of Papua New Guinea on the 6th of May 1997. In 2016, the late Justice Kirriwom was appointed a judge of the Court of Appeal of Nauru and was still serving there up to the time of his death. In 2017, His Honor was given a sabbatical leave by the then Chief Justice Salamo India to complete a Masters of Law program at the Bond University in Queensland, which he successfully completed. He has been a judge of the National Court and the Supreme Court since 6th of May 1997 and was just short of the full 24 years by 23 days. He passed on Monday, 12th of April 2021 at the Pacific International Hospital in Port Moresby. His Honor was the third in rank in relation to the seniority of judges in the National Court and the Supreme Court. And as you can see, the Deputy Chief Justice is sitting on my right, and the next most senior judge after the Deputy Chief Justice sits on my left. That is the vacant seat that His Honor the late Justice Kirriwom occupied, which is now empty. His Honor was an accredited certified judicial trainer in the Pacific region and became a fellow of the Commonwealth Judicial Education Institute, Nova Scotia, Halifax, Canada in 2011. At the Bond University, when he completed his master's, he was awarded the high distinction in first-class honors on common law and legal skills in June of 2018 at the Bond University while completing his master's in law program. His Honor was awarded a Companion of the Most Distinguished Order of St. Michael and St. George in 2014. His Honor, in his spare time, hosted the Papua New Guinea Second Surfing Championship under Tupira Surfing Club in March of 2011 and in 2017 hosted Papua New Guinea's inaugural International Surfing Championship at the Tupiri Surf Club in Bogia, Medang. I would like to think that His Honor achieved almost everything that he had hoped to achieve in his professional life as a lawyer and as a jurist. His Honor was a well-known jurist in the Pacific region, and it was on that basis that he got appointed to the Court of Appeal in Nauru. His Honor rubbed shoulders with a lot of lawyers who might be in this crowd today, together with those of us who are on the bench today as well. I checked the PNG in law to find out if I had to check any cases that I might have had dealt with him while as opposing counsel. I could only find two. And the reason for that is that I spent much of my practicing days in the Highlands, more so than here. I left here in 1981 to go to Mount Hagen and didn't see or didn't appear against him whilst I was practicing here in Mount Hagen than here, while His Honor has always been here in Port Moresby, and so others would have had the better opportunity to, like Justice Eric Carrico and Justice Bona, who might have appeared against him in the days in the 1980s. But I could only find two cases, as I said, and one was with both of us did appear before. I don't know, many of you would, I think the older ones would remember Acting Justice Paul Quinlivan. We appeared before Paul Quinlivan of my first case against him, and the second case that I had with him was in Alotau with Acting Justice Bernard Narakobi sitting as the judge, and we dealt with the case of the state against Noah Mago, reported in the 1981 Papua New Guinea Law Reports, reported at page 1, and that is a case relating to sorcery-related cases from Millen Bay in Alotau. Anyway, that's just my experience with him, Mr. Kirriwom over here. That was my only encounter with him, against him as a lawyer. Justice Kirriwom fought his good fight on earth here. The work that the Almighty God had entrusted him to do, I am sure he completed most of what he was able to do until his death. I'd not like to read a message from the President of the Court of Appeal in Nauru, the Chief Justice of Nauru. He said, this is what he said, and I'll pass this on to the family later on. Said, dear Chief Justice Salika, it is with great sadness that he and his wife heard of the passing of our dear colleague Justice Nicholas Kirriwom. Although I got to know him only for a short time since his joining the Court of Appeal, joining the Nauru Court of Appeal, I quickly got to admire and respect his deep perspective of and appreciation of the important role and place of customs and customary law play in the administration of justice in any jurisdiction, but especially to our South Pacific countries with indigenous population confronting the introduced English common law and continental civil law traditions. He was endowed with a sense of responsibility in ensuring that dispensing justice to our people can only be truly fair if there is a proper understanding of the people and society and a sensitive appreciation and application of the different law traditions. I especially appreciate the fact that Nicholas and Rachel were people of faith, and I believe this often is transposed and reflected in the late Justice's actions and judgments. I was very much looking forward to meeting up with him at the next Nauru Court of Appeal sitting, but it is not to be, only God knew. PNG Judiciary has lost a remarkable human being and a leading region's jurist, and he sends his deepest condolences to Rachel and the children, and he says, may his soul rest in eternal peace with the Lord. Kind regards, Philemone Jitoko. That's the name of the Chief Justice of Nauru. He's a Fijian. All right. The next message that I want to read is from Justice John Logan of the Federal Court of Australia, who is also is a member of this court as well. He says, I returned today from the short period of post-Easter period, brought with it the news deeply saddening both to Jen and to me of the recent passing of our brother Nicholas Kirriwom. If we had not already had a reminder enough of late of the impact in Papua New Guinea of the current worldwide viral pandemic, this awful event made that impact stark. Jen and I each have such happy memories of our encounters with the lay judge and his wife. I also had the pleasure of meeting their beautiful daughter during the course of teaching at the Legal Training Institute. For my part, those happy memories are not just the result of the experience of his legal scholarship and fraternal courtesy and good humor, but also of direct observation of his courage and commitment to judicial independence as displayed during those times in 2012. I've lost a dear friend, the court has lost a fine judge, and Papua New Guinea has lost a true patriot. The consoling thought I respectfully suggest is that these losses are but a reflection of the value of his singular contribution at both personal, institutional, and national levels. I regret the continuing international travel restrictions which will prevent my attendance at the valedictory sitting. I would be grateful if you would record at the sitting my sincere regret in respect of that inability to attend, and also convey the sentiments expressed in this letter of his widow and to his widow and family, which I have now done. His Honor Judge Greg Egan of the Federal Court of Australia, who practiced extensively in Papua New Guinea prior to his appointment to that court, was also deeply saddened to learn of the passing of the late judge, for whom he had singular admiration and respect, and especially requested me to ask you that his condolence likewise be recorded and conveyed, which I do so now. All right, that's from the brother John Logan in Brisbane and the Federal Court of Australia. And now this is another message from the Pacific Judicial Strengthening Initiative project, which Justice Kirriwom was involved with, together with the late Justice Regina Sagu and myself. And this is what they say. The team says, Dear Chief Justice Salika, our sincere condolences on the passing of Justice Kirriwom. Thank you for your advice, and we completely understand. Our thoughts and wishes are with Justice Kirriwom's family and the court. So those are their condolence messages from the Pacific Judicial Strengthening Initiative, which His Honor Justice Kirriwom was a big part of. Those are the condolence messages from out of Papua New Guinea. But I have a few more things to say, which I'd like to... there are a number of burning issues of concern I wish to raise. His Honor was 66 years old at his death. That is not old or very old for that matter. He died young. Papua New Guinea life expectancy has increased in general from 45 years in the 1950s and 60s to more than 60 years today. People are now living up to 70, 80, and even to 90 years old. This is a sign of improved standard of living. On the night of 23rd February 2021, His Honor was part of the Supreme Court panel here in Waigani on the 22nd. And on the night of the 23rd of 2021, His Honor was rushed to the Pacific International Hospital at about 10 o'clock p.m. The hospital demanded an upfront deposit of 25,000 kina from the judge before they could attend to him. I'm told Dr. Sapuri came to his aid that night. First of all, I note the time of the day, it was 10 o'clock p.m. Secondly, 25,000 kina deposit payment demand. What is the reasonableness of that deposit demand at that time of the day? It looks like business over preservation of life. Foreign medical providers, you are in our country and you're flourishing business because Papua New Guineans are supporting your hospital by going to your hospitals to get treated for illnesses. Be considerate to our nationals, more so our leaders. I am aware and admit that some of the medical treatments require specialist medical attention, and I know that those can cost a lot of money. I was told that the 25,000 kina deposit that was demanded was just for a deposit, but that the actual cost would be in the vicinity of 50 to 70,000 kina. The Constitution of Papua New Guinea, Section 35, gives every person the right to life and to live. And that is the right to life itself, and that it should not be deprived intentionally. That life must be protected at all costs, medically or otherwise. I know that choosing a medical facility or a hospital is an individual matter of choice. In this case, the judge and his family decided on a hospital. They decided on the Pacific International Hospital. Medical ethics and any thoughts of preserving life appear to go down the drain when medical clinics require exorbitant upfront deposits. Another matter of concern I raise is the qualifications of foreign medical doctors and health workers admitted to practice medicine in Papua New Guinea. I am concerned for the welfare, safety, and health of our people, the people of our country, who choose to go and get treated in clinics or hospitals owned and run by foreign practitioners. I mean no disrespect to them, but what is the criteria for grant of a medical certificate to practice medicine in our country, in Papua New Guinea? After a quick cursory look at the Papua New Guinea Medical Registration Act, I note there is a medical board of Papua New Guinea which considers and decides on the grant of certification to all medical practitioners who apply for certification in this country. I note the role of the medical board in granting registration certificates to those who apply for registration as medical practitioners in this country. This is a very important role that the medical board plays. I note that this is a body that allows foreigners and Papua New Guinean health workers to practice medicine in this country. This is a function sanctioned by law. The duty of the medical board of Papua New Guinea is therefore a statutory function. It's a statutory one. When the medical board is sitting to determine the grant or otherwise of a medical registration certificate to an application for registration, what criteria is used by that medical board before it can be satisfied that the foreign applicant has met all the criteria required for certification under the Medical Registration Act? The medical board is reminded that you are dealing with lives of human beings and no lesser beings. All medical workers covered under the Medical Registration Act must and should be required to be vigorously screened before any certification to practice medicine in Papua New Guinea is granted or issued. For instance, a foreign applicant applying for a grant or issue of medical certification of registration should get a certification from the university medical school where he or she got his or her academic qualification, medical qualifications, from certifying that the applicant completed the required medical training at that institution to be admitted to practice medicine in that country. With respect, that certification must be authenticated by medical school or the registrar of that medical school. Those must be accompanied by sworn affidavits declaring the authenticity of the academic transcripts and the degree in medicine or surgery. That medical school must certify that the candidate for registration has successfully completed a similar medical training course offered by the School of Medicine in Papua New Guinea, and that a further certification from the Foreign Medical Board registrar that the applicant has practiced medicine in that country where he graduated from for over a period of, say, 5 years or more, so that, or in that country and other countries, if any. I would prefer foreign doctors to be, or medical workers, to be granted certifications at a registrar or higher level, and not only with 1 or 2 years experience in the country that they probably got their certifications from, and then come to Papua New Guinea only after 1 or 2 years of experience. I cannot see that kind of criteria under the Papua New Guinea Medical Registration Act. I insist on the government, and that is to you, the Attorney General, I insist on the government, through you, the Attorney General, to ensure this criteria is included under our Medical Registration Act for the purpose of protecting the lives and welfare of our people and protecting the practice of medicine in Papua New Guinea. This criteria must be applicable to foreign medical doctors and other health workers applying to practice medicine in Papua New Guinea. We must register only the properly certified medical doctors. We must register only properly qualified medical doctors, nursing staff, together with all other allied health workers and dental workers. Why is the PNG Papua New Guinea Medical Board and the Investment Promotion Authority allowing foreign private medical hospitals and clinics to mushroom in Port Moresby and in Lae? Are Papua New Guinea medical practitioners not qualified and worthy of establishing private medical clinics by being supported by the banks through bank loans and by the government, just like the other Papua New Guinea run hospitals or clinics which are owned and operated by Papua New Guineans? And the questions I raise in that regard are these. Are the staff engaged in the foreign hospitals and clinics qualified to practice medicine in Papua New Guinea? Has the Medical Board of Papua New Guinea given the foreign medical workers the following tests? Test number 1, occupational English test, so that our Papua New Guinea patients can communicate with them properly when they find themselves in the foreign medical facility. Justice Kirriwom died alone in the hands of foreign medical workers in his hospital cubicle. Nobody knows what happened to him or how he died. I wonder what happened. That's test number 1, occupational English test, so that the people that is working there speak and understand good English. Number 2 test, multiple choice clinical questions for them to answer. Number 3 test is clinical examinations to be done by the medical board to those foreign medical workers wishing to be admitted to practice medicine in Papua New Guinea. All 3 tests must be passed. It appears the Papua New Guinea Medical Board has not been doing this work over the years. If these tests are not provided for under the Medical Registration Act, then I insist again through the Attorney General that this requirement be immediately included in the Medical Registration Act. The Department of Health, together with the Department of Justice and Attorney General and the Legislative Council, work together with some urgency to make the changes to the Medical Registration Act. This is absolutely necessary and must be done for the sake and welfare, safety and health of our people. We need to protect our people and protect the medical profession of our country. Do not get me wrong, PNG needs primary health care and PNG needs foreign health workers. But I want and I demand them to be properly and adequately qualified before being certified to practice medicine in Papua New Guinea. If the Papua New Guinea Medical Board has not been properly screening the foreign medical practitioners who apply for certification, then I hope that this call will wake them up from the slumber that they are currently in at the moment, because I think they should be held accountable and responsible for the type of medical staff that are being engaged at the foreign medical clinics. As I said, I am made to make these comments after I saw the late Justice Kirriwom's body at the hospital, and then after another patient, a wife of a senior officer of the National Judicial Staff Service, lost his wife to medical care under the same hospital. He and she were there on their own without wife or children and died lonely deaths with no one to witness their deaths. As to how they died, which is rather sad, because in Papua New Guinea custom, our people are there right beside the bedside of the patient if he or she is to die. And so in this case, nobody knows what happened. The children, they don't know what happened to or how Justice Kirriwom passed on. He died a lonely death. In the PNG medical, if the PNG Medical Board has been properly screening foreign medical practitioners, then if they had been doing their job faithfully, then this would not happen, and I would not be making this statement today. To Rachel, to the children of Justice Kirriwom, you should be proud of your father's achievements over the years that he has served this institution and his country with total dedication and commitment. Your father has set a high standard for you to emulate, and that you will follow suit in your career as lawyers. May your father's and Rachel, your husband's soul, rest in eternal peace. Thank you. That's my statement. And now I will ask the Attorney General to make his statement, and then I will ask the President of the Law Society to make his statement after that. And by leave of this court, we will give Sir Anil Ahmed Mr. Attorney General, you have 10 minutes. The President, you have got 10 minutes, and Sir Anil, you have 10 minutes to make your statements. Thank you.
Your Honor, Chief Justice Sir Gif Salika, Deputy Chief Justice Honorable Ben Kadagasi, your fellow colleagues, the members of the ministry, the President of the Law Society, Mr. Harlan Mana, Public Prosecutor and Public Solicitor. distinguished guests, members of the legal fraternity, family and friends of the late Honorable Justice Nicholas Kirriwom. It is a privilege to rise on behalf of the State Legal Services of Papua New Guinea and the law and justice sector of Papua New Guinea to pay tribute to the service and life of the late Honorable Justice Nicholas Kirriwom. His late honor has created a legacy that is much to be desired. A very senior member of the judiciary with vast legal experience that spans 43 years since his admission as a lawyer in 1978. And we just had the biography from the Chief Justice. The PNG legal fraternity and the judiciary has lost a wealth of experience that can only be built over a career span as that of his late honor. His honor commenced his career as a legal officer of the Public Solicitor's Office, as we've heard, from 1978 to 1979. And then within a period of 3 years, he was promoted to Principal Legal Officer and Deputy Public Solicitor, and immediately after that, as Public Solicitor of Papua New Guinea, as we had heard, replacing Seanul Ahmed. His career progression demonstrates his honor's ability to adapt quickly and his sharp legal skills that were required to perform such a prominent role in the law and justice sector. His honor has also experience in the private sector after his term as public solicitor. From 1988 to 1992, he was principal of Kirriwom and co-lawyers. And earlier, from 1987 to 88, he was managing partner of Narokobi Musro and the lawyers, as we've heard. And of course, from 1986 to 87, he was a lawyer with Narokobi and co-lawyers. Within a period of 10 years, his honor sailed through his career, becoming public solicitor of Papua New Guinea, managing partner for a private law firm, to running his own firm as a principal. This is no easy feat within such a short time framework. Only a visionary with determination and passion could have achieved such a colorful career. He was then appointed on 6 May 1997 as a judge, and since then has diligently served in his capacity till his death while serving as senior resident judge in Wibek and judge administrator of East Sepik, West Sepik, and Manus provinces. And if I may add, as a friend on his Facebook, every morning when he gets up, he would post a picture of the sunrise in Wibek. And then in the evening, he would post a photo of the sunset in Wibek. And I really enjoyed those pictures, so I would comment on his post. So he really promoted Wibek and East Sepik. His honor still had a desire to continue his academic aspirations. Despite him reaching the pinnacle of any lawyer's dream by becoming a judge of the National and Supreme Court, he pursued postgraduate studies. I was fortunate to have a short conversation with him because he asked me, Secretary for CLRC, I would like to go and study my master's in law. Do you think I can make it? And I told him, as a former academic, I said, I'd really be pleased for you to go. And so I helped him with becoming one of his referees to go and study at Bond University. So when he graduated with high colors, I was very, very happy that I was able to contribute a little bit of my time to assist him on his journey to achieve his postgraduate degree. So I'm pleased that in 2018, he attained his Master's of Law in Dispute Resolution at the Bond University, during which he was awarded the Academic Excellence Award in first class in Common Law and Legal Studies. This demonstrates his honor's ability to keep adapting to the changing circumstances and needs of society and pushing limits. It is truly an admirable trait and a great example. His honor also had a great heart for community issues and gave time from his busy schedule to a number of social reforms, such as the Surfing Association of PNG and the Tupira Surf Club, which he is the founder and patron of. Through his contributions, through such platforms, he was able to bring the community together. Again, as I said, as one of his Facebook friends, I was able to write and contribute my little ideas on his honor's journey on this road. He was very passionate about Tupira Surf Club, so he would be posting And then several times I've seen over the years that he would raise funds by walking on the North Coast Highway to raise funds for the health center, and recently trying to build up a court facility in Bogia. His Honor initiated ongoing community development and improvement programs in health, education, economic, and social sectors at the community level. In recognition for his contributions, he was knighted as Companion of the Most Distinguished Order of St. Michael and St. George to the legal profession and judiciary. As the clan chief of the Arigasua clan from Ewok village, Bogia district in Meren province, His Honor was able to lead by example and truly reach the heights of career that only comes with passion and dedication to the service of his people. When I was doing my PhD, one of my field sites was Bogia. And so I was able to live in the villages in Bogia and travel up and down the North Coast Highway. So when I shared my experiences with the late Judge Kirriwom, he was very happy that I was able to connect with him because we were able to discuss issues about Bogia. And one of the key concerns that he had was logging. He was very concerned about the destruction of logging in Bogia and his attempt to beautify the logging pond that became the Tupira's surfing base. Because of this work, I became a good friend of my late brother and judge. We had long discussions about the role of custom in the development of the Melanesian jurisprudence. This interest led us to team up with other judges, led by Ehona, Justice Polume, on the judiciary's codification project. And so I was able to work with this team of judges and our lawyers from the Law Reform Commission in doing work in Manus province. And so in several trips up there, we were able to work together with the communities and began to develop strong relationships with the people of Manus. I really enjoyed my time with the judges under the leadership of Justice Polume, and I hope that we can continue this work with the judiciary, because we only finished Manus. We need to go to the other provinces as well. So much can be learned from the life of this stalwart of a man. He was a great role model for the legal fraternity in PNG. His role in the public service came at a time when PNG was just birthed as a new nation. Being a young lawyer in the public service, in contribution in the law and justice sector cannot go unnoticed. As he, amongst those in the early years of nation building, has set the foundations of which we now stand upon. His life as a senior judge also sets a great example. A judge that was able to still adapt to changing situations and circumstances. I was very impressed with him because he was always on Facebook. Judges are very busy people, but for some reason he was able to contribute his thoughts on the Facebook so that we could contribute our ideas to him as well as a person. So his life has set a really great example for all of us. In paying this tribute, I also want to acknowledge the people in the life of His Honor that enabled him to excel in his career and life goals. I honor his parents and his dear wife, Rachel. We've lost a great man. And his dear children and grandchildren and his people of Arigasua clan. With your undying support and love, your son, husband, father, grandfather, and the chief gave his best and contributed immensely in service to the people of Papua New Guinea. I also want to close with a couple of comments that was raised by the Chief Justice. I'd like to leave this challenge with those of us in the legal fraternity to aspire to build legacies instead of the late Justice Kirriwom. We have recently lost late Justice Agu and others who are still serving in the national judiciary. This has created a huge void that needs to be filled. This void needs to be filled with men and women whose work ethic, professional life, community life, and personal life must emulate those of leaders such as the late Justice Kirriwom. I take note of the points that have been raised by the Chief Justice. I wish to mention that just last week, the government approved the amendments to the Medical Registration Board to include nurses and doctors from other universities in this country, so we can be able to increase the number of doctors, local doctors, that are coming out of our different universities. At the moment, UPNG has the sole privilege in producing the doctors. With these amendments, we can now be able to also encourage doctors from Divine Word University, from PAU, and from Goroka University as well to practice in this country, so we can increase the number of doctors in our country. But I take note of the issues that have been raised, and I will try and talk to the minister and see how we can be able to progress it. May late Honorable Justice Nicholas Kirriwom's soul rest in eternal peace until the golden day when you all meet. Thank you.
President of the Law Society.
The Chief Justice of Papua New Guinea, Sir Gibbs Salika, Deputy Chief Justice, Your Honours, Senior Magistrates from the Magisterial Service, the Attorney General, Constitutional Office Holders, the Solicitor General, professional colleagues, family and relatives of the late Justice Kirriwom, ladies and gentlemen. I also make special mention to, it is with great sympathy and sorrow that we come to this court today to mourn the passing of the late Justice Kirriwom. Before us lies one of our pioneer and senior judges who has been a judge of the National and Supreme Courts for the last almost 24 years. The legal fraternity was shocked upon learning of his death. The late judge's passing comes at a rather challenging time, not just for lawyers and the public at large, but also for the judiciary, as it streamlines its operations to continue to effectively dispense justice, while at the same time keeping all court staff and court users safe from the perils of the COVID-19 pandemic. We understand that the late judge overcame one illness, but succumbed to another unrelated illness. Only last month we farewelled another judge in the late Justice Regina Sagu. The passing of Justice Kirriwom is therefore a double blow to the judiciary, having lost two judges in very short order, at the time when the judiciary is seeking to renew its numbers. The late Justice Kirriwom was a unique and dynamic character whose presence will certainly be missed. For some of us, the younger generation of lawyers, we see rare qualities in this man which remind us of our ethos as lawyers. The late Justice Kirriwom was part of the first crop of Papua New Guinean lawyers who entered the workforce as our country gained independence. Apart from later private practice, from the profession's campus, I would say that the judge's most valuable professional contribution to this country before becoming a judge was in the Public Solicitor's Office between 1978 and 1986, where he started as a legal officer fresh out of legal training and rose to head that office as public solicitor in 1983. As a professional, there is a certain admirable quality in being in the same place for a long time as a lawyer. More so in the criminal justice sector, where given the challenges of the job, longevity in that space would no doubt involve a genuine love for the job, the subject one interacts with as part of that job, an element of sacrifice, including self-sacrifice, and a sincere belief that the system works and people can change for the overall betterment of this country. Being chairman of the Parole Board of Papua New Guinea between 1993 and 1997, in my view, epitomizes the essence of that character. On the bench, the late judge was prolific in his articulations and use of language. He certainly had a knack for great prose. His Honour always maintained his usual steady, steely disposition, which sometimes menaced those who did not prepare well for a hearing. His Honour was otherwise pragmatic and was fair in his approach to matters. Suffice to say, the late Justice Kirriwom's contribution to the development of our local jurisprudence has been nothing but colossal. Outside his professional life, the late Justice Kirriwom was a true Catholic and remained active throughout his life in helping his church pursue humanitarian causes, something he found greatly rewarding, perhaps given the lives that that contribution touched. The late judge also had maintained an interest in mentoring ongoing community and improvement programs in his local area. Through the medium of the local Tupira Surf Club since 2008, he had engendered simple, innovative programs to empower his people through the surfing platform. As a mentor, his legacy has been an endearing, powerful, and inspirational one. It is our hope that the lives that this man has touched through his various vocations will continue in the righteous path which he had envisioned. To the family of the late Justice Kirriwom, on behalf of the Papua New Guinea Law Society, we thank you for his life and offer our sincerest condolences. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Sano Ahmed, with leave of the court.
Thank you, Chief Justice, Mrs. Kirriwom, Redrick and Stephanie. Deputy Chief Justice, Your Honours, senior members of the magistracy, the former judge, colleague, now Ambassador Don Sawong, Attorney General, Constitutional Officer Holders, Public Solicitor, Public Prosecutor, Solicitor General, and the President of the Law Society, and I acknowledge a whole group of senior members of the profession today. Ladies and gentlemen, I join you, Chief Justice and Attorney General and the President of the Law Society. As good lawyers, we often say, I concur with everything that's been said, and if you don't have anything much else to say, you add, I don't have anything more to say. But of course, I do, and as we all have on this occasion. I thank you, Chief Justice, for the privilege of giving me leave to join you all in acknowledging the life of Nick, as I call him, the late Justice Kirriwom. As we recounted briefly at the House Cry on Wednesday, I think last week, sir, and Deputy Chief Justice, our lives together go back 45 years plus. It's a small profession, ladies and gentlemen, many of you sitting on the bench, we've all had associations in our legal careers, and then on the bench, as I was with you, and then Justice Kirriwom joining us. So let me recount, and not to repeat much of what you, Chief Justice, said, but some of the dates that reminds me of the different stages of the late Justice Kirriwom's life, and his wife Rachel, of course. I know that as well as you, Chief Justice, when we were young and courting different women and girlfriends. Rachel remembers that as I do. But as you recounted, and other senior members at the bar table, the dates of Justice Kirriwom's birth and then his entry at the law school, and then later joining me at Public Solicitors, is essentially 2 years behind me. 2 years younger than, well, 3 years younger than me. As you recounted, sir, when he started his legal training at the UPNG Law School in 1974, I was several years ahead of yourself, quite a number at the bar table, at the bench, at the bar table as well. And then our careers continue to follow one another. As I graduated in early 1976 and went to the Legal Training Institute, I don't remember, Chief Justice, but whether you and he were the same year as well?
No,
No, you were a
I
year
was
ahead.
1 year behind.
You were a year behind him. All right. So he completed law school in 1977, entered legal training in 78. I don't recall Judge Kirriwom so much, and despite his being from Madang, I, of course, went overseas, did my education, and so I didn't really know the judge. But Chief Justice and I, of course, we played rugby, so we knew each other well on the rugby paddock, and then later in our careers together. You, of course, went into public prosecution with Sakina, and my colleague at the time, my counterpart, was Justice Les Guevara, Nano. Anyhow, as you recounted, sir, Nick quickly followed my footsteps, becoming senior defending officer in the criminal defense section, as I preceded him to becoming principal defending officer and later public solicitor in 1981. He similarly followed me, and so we all recount in 1983, August, when I was elevated to the bench. He then succeeded me. I just calculated the number of years that we might have worked together, from 79 when he joined the public solicitors, late 1978, early 1979, to 83 when I left to come to the bench. So it's only 4 years. But he's succeeding me in those offices of senior defending criminal defense officer and then principal defending officer, the offices I occupied, and moved very quickly, so did he. And then succeeding me as public solicitor in 1983, that was a period of 4 years. And then, as I calculate here to now, from that year, 1983, when he succeeded me, the years that you all described, is living public solicitor in 1986, and I think that you, Justice Kirriwom, might have succeeded him.
Yes, he
As
did.
I tried to put all the dates together, because Justice Coigate, you were one of our senior officers at the time. I was there as well, and quite a number on this bench, quite a number of them not here. Justice Batari, I've just listed, Justice Manu, of course, as you sit there. And as the President of the Law Society said, the two principal constitutional officers from which many have graced this bench, and you do today, is the Public Prosecutor's Office and the Public Solicitor's Office. Sakina, Justice Kirriwom, who were both public prosecutors and public solicitors. It's part of our thinking at the time, Chief Justice, that these were senior professional legal officers, constitutional officers, who would one day be elevated to this bench, and it was part of the planning that they experienced both being prosecutors and defense office in the public solicitors. And so, as many at the bar and on the bench now know, including where Justice Kirriwom, 14 years later, as I calculate, from when I came to the bench in 1983 to during my tenure as Chief Justice in 1997, when we recommended his elevation. It's a long period of 14 years. You all described, he moved on into private practice and did many other things in his career before he was elevated. During my tenure in 1997, 14 years after he succeeded me, and then now serving after his reappointment, as I understand, for a further 10 years, third term of 10 years in 2017, nearly 4 years ago. And so our relationship goes back a long way. I think the fact that we have all paid tribute to of his continued reappointments on this bench, and most recent one 4 years ago, simply speaks of his competence. As we know, our appointments terms are 10 years at a time of judges as well as the chief justices. And if I might just suggest going forward, sooner or later, we must amend the constitutional provisions so that when you are competent and sufficiently qualified to be so elevated, you're elevated, appointed in for the life tenure, the retiring age, which has increased from the time that I was serving to 73 and 75, as I understand. So, but so long as judges perform, as we all know, you get reappointed. This has continued to happen, and that speaks volume. And Justice Kirriwom's appointment for third term simply speaks of his competence that members of the bar table have described. I, of course, left the bench, as I've calculated now, 17 years going 18. And I was just reflecting how that the last time I addressed the bench and the bar was at my farewell in 2003. Prior to that, I recall, and of course, the law reports will record when we are welcomed by the profession and the public, either onto the bench, as many of you sitting here today, and as well as myself. And so I guess the other time that I would have spoken about Justice Kirriwom would have been in 1997, when I would have welcomed him onto the bench. And then not very long, of course, 6 years as I calculate once again, when I then left the bench. So Nick served with me and many of you, Chief Justice, for 6 years only in my remaining term as Chief Justice from 1997 to 2003. I think we all can speak of his other activities that I'm familiar with. Of course, I went on to becoming governor for Madang, and then what he was continuing to do. I never had the privilege of visiting Wollongong and the surfing association that he led. I read much about it, and I'm sure that when Deputy Chief Justice, you and others take his body home, there'll be a lot of commendation about that accomplishment. I've read, and occasionally I would run into Nick in Madang, of course, as I was resident there with his wife, Rachel, a number of times when he was resident in Kirriwom, Chief Justice, and I know every time I see many of you, my colleagues, former colleagues, and senior members of the profession, we often look at each other's physical shape and comment as to whether you are looking good or you need some fitness, like my colleague sitting over here, looking prosperous. So I remember a couple of times as Mrs. Kirriwom, Mrs. Kirriwom will recall running into herself and Nicholas in Madang, and first things I often look at with colleagues, and that's just life, is how you're looking, whether we've heard you've been unwell, and so I've often commented about his physical health and how that this high-pressure work that we're all engaged in can contribute to lifestyle consequences. And Chief Justice, you've commented on that, and in the social gatherings, we all make those observations about our health. As we mature and grow older, work pressures, lifestyle pressures can contribute to our health. You rightly commented, Chief Justice, that, as I did as well at the house cry at Nick's house, that Nick leaves some of us much younger than he would have otherwise or ought to have. As we all commented, those of us who believe that death is a mystery in God's providence that we cannot ever understand. Life we do, but death at whatever stage, young or midlife, such as our colleague Justice Kirriwom now leaving us, while still serving at such a young age, as you commented, Chief Justice, and I also echo that. But as a Madang as well, may I just say this, former governor, and Justice Kirriwom is a senior Madang citizen. I think he's the most senior serving Madang citizen, not just on the bench, but in public life. I'm partially retired. There are not many in many other provinces as well. So as his body is taken home, I'm sure the Madang citizens, including the government, as I understand, will pay appropriate respects for Justice Kirriwom's accomplishment. And indeed, Chief Justice, may I add, and ladies and gentlemen, a senior national citizen. You don't rise to becoming the third most senior judicial officer in the country at this age, and the years of his service, 24 years, without the acknowledgement of seniority. So he's a senior national citizen, third most senior judicial officer, one of the most senior men in Madang and the country. So I'm proud to be joining you all, Chief Justice and members of the bench, the magistracy and the legal fraternity, in paying tribute to this colleague, professional, national leader. And may I also add, just recently, all of us have been meeting each other at this kind of gatherings of senior national citizens. Yes, the great two statesmen, Sir McCarry, were elderly, and the great Grand Chief, the most senior of us all. And then there have been others that you have all acknowledged at different ages, and perhaps far too many. I was sitting here, Chief Justice, and reflecting on members of this bench that we have paid tribute to and acknowledged the achievements of and had to farewell, starting with our first Chief Justice, Sir Burri. At a young age, indeed, as Chief Justice, you and I recall, leaving us shortly after he left the bench and I succeeded him. And then, in your terms, the first of our national judges, the late Sir Mari, who was my senior at the public solicitors, and he was the first of our national judges coming to this bench. Again, at a very young age, through illness. There are many other senior judges of this bench. I think that if we were to do a quick mathematical calculation of percentages per capita, we'll probably find that we are losing more judges on this bench per capita than many other professions. Now, I don't know what the issues are, lifestyle diseases, pressure, stress, and so on, but every time we members of this fraternity of the profession and the bench gather to farewell colleagues, it saddens us. And today is a very special occasion. And Chief Justice and members of the bench and magistracy and the legal fraternity, I join you all. Commend our late brother and colleagues' achievements, accomplishments, and contribution. And as you've all remarked, our legacy as members of the bench remains in our judgments, the pronouncements and the elucidation of law and policy and development of the jurisprudence that we're all charged with as the law reports are read in years and years to come by members of the legal fraternity. We all appreciate we are part of a constitutional democracy that developed part of government national policy in elucidation of constitutional interpretation and judicial judgment. So we commend our late colleague and friend and brother, Nicholas, Rachel and Frederick and Stephanie and your other brother and sister. You can be well proud of Nick. I am proud to be now joining the members of the bench and the judicial legal fraternity to commending him. We are so saddened at the sudden way in which he left us. As you take his body home, I'm sure the Malalas and the Madain community led by the governor, I hope, will pay appropriate tribute to the accomplishment of this great national citizen, Madain, and a member of our fraternity. Thank you, Chief Justice, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. That's the end of the program, Mr. Associate. What are the other parts of it?
On the rise, please. stand to.
Is good.